Good evening, everybody. My name is Monika Szewczyk. I'm the ordained chief curator here at the Polygon Gallery, and I would like to begin by acknowledging that our work at the Polygon Gallery is located on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. Today we are gathering very close to the site of the Squamish village of Eslahan. And most of us here are uninvited guests, and we continue to reflect on what it means to honor those who have been stewards of these lands and waters since time immemorial, and also to learn how their traditions and also their innovations can inspire our work. Our topic tonight is questions of photography and social transformation, which feels particularly timely and also core to our enduring mission as a photo-focused institution. It is occasioned by our exhibition from Slander's Bernd, curated by Reid Shire, the director of the Polygon Gallery, and we're grateful for the generous support of Mark and Diana Sawyers, Terence and Lisa Turner, and Bruno Wall. The exhibition features Hannah Darabi, who is our honored guest today, alongside Kelly McCormick, as well as Rachel Kaduri and Ron Tarada. And each artist in this exhibition has contributed one epic work of research and artistic labor, which greatly expands understanding of our transforming world and its recent histories. Books play a key role in this exhibition, and Hannah Darabi's Enghelab Street, A Revolution in Books, Iran 1979 to 1983, is both an artwork involving book collections and also an artist's book in its own right. And I'm happy to tell you that we have recently received some extra copies, so if you are interested in adding this to your collection, the Diane Evans bookstore will be open after the talk. It was closed at the moment, but it will be open after the talk. And I would like to thank our partners in tonight's program, the Critical Image Forum at the University of British Columbia, with funding from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. And special thanks to Althea Thauberger, founder of the forum and professor of fine arts at UBC. Also warm thanks to our AV partners, McHugh Productions, and the entire dedicated team at the Polygon Gallery, and specifically Olushayo Olowake, who organizes our public programs, and who will have the mic at the end of this talk to facilitate a broader conversation. So now I have the great honor of introducing our guests for tonight. Hannah Darabi is an Iranian artist and photographer. She studied at Tehran's College of Fine Arts and then at the University of Paris VIII-Saint-Denis. Although she now lives in Paris, her country of origin remains the main subject of most of her photographic series, in which her photographs interact with other materials such as text, archival images, music, and objects to show the unique political situation and economic conditions of her country. Among many honors, in 2019, Enghelab Street, A Revolution Through Books, Iran 1979 to 1983, earned the Historical Book Award at the Rencontres de la photographie d'Arles. In 2023, so this year, Hannah Darabi was granted the Bernd and Hila Becher Promotion Prize for photography by the City of Düsseldorf for her outstanding contribution to photographic art. And I was fortunate to attend the award ceremony at the Kunstakademie in Düsseldorf and listen to Hannah, actually her acceptance speech, which highlighted the continued struggle for women, life, and freedom in Iran. It was a remarkable speech on a really great occasion. Kelly McCormick is an historian of Japanese photography whose work explores the way Japanese women photographers turned to photography to support or critique the state from the 1930s to the 1980s. Her book in progress, The Cameraman in a Skirt, The Making of Modern Japanese Photography, addresses how in the 1960s and 70s, women transformed the camera into a tool against the state and corporations as they photographed protest, pollution events, and the women's liberation movement. She is one of these brave people who began her work at UBC in the fateful year of 2020 after completing her PhD at UCLA. So we are thrilled to have her in our midst in Vancouver, or so-called Vancouver. So please join me in welcoming Hannah Darabi and Kelly McCormick for this evening.
Thank you all for coming this evening. Can you hear me all right? Great. Well, it's such a pleasure and honor to be here in conversation with Hannah, whose work is deeply moving and so brilliant. As a historian of photography, this nimbleness with which Hannah moves across archiving practices, critically examining historical texts within photo books, and then also collections of texts. Oh, that's louder. Is just really phenomenal to see. So I'm so glad to be able to share more of her perspective here today. And I really view myself as a facilitator of learning more from Hannah about her work today. So I want to start with your exhibition. And I hope everyone has had the chance to see it already, and if not, the gallery is open until 9 tonight, so please go see it after the talk. Hannah is doing this amazing thing in the exhibition of combining an intermedia landscape of images that she's collected from across various sources, but not only these images, but books themselves. And so I want to start by talking about what it means to put all of these forms of media in conversation with one another. Here we have photo books that make up a bulk of the collection, and really I hope everyone who can buy the book does so, because these photo books are reproduced within the book, and I mean they're incredible to look at. And you can't look through them here because this is the original piece, but in the book you can get a sense of this comparative look across different visual forms. And then we also have historic texts. And so I want to start here with hearing from Hannah about what it means to put these two forms of books in an exhibition.
Okay, so hello everyone, and also thank you Polygon and UBC for making this interesting talk with Kelly happening tonight. So this project, Enghelab Street project, is composed of 2 book collections. As Kelly said, we have the photo book collection and then political text book collection. There were some objects that they had a very crucial role in the accomplishment of the revolution, Iranian Revolution of 1979, and so books were among these objects. And for example, I should start with the maybe political books, because they were books that we call them white covers, and they are mostly published and also distributed under table by the leftists. It's kind of a tradition of leftist parties. So they were mostly books made by political parties and also students groups or activists to communicate the ideas around the revolution. And then we have photo books, which is also interestingly something special of this years of the beginning of the revolution. And I think because of this tradition of white covers, people in the also photography, they started to make books, because books became this kind of a protest tool, and also we can say resistance tool. But if we can say political books, they had this crucial role of accomplishment of the revolution. Photo books, they also played this making of the revolution, but making the narratives of the revolution, but especially making the revolution what it became after. So through this project, I want to put in light the role of the books, of course, and how they build these different narratives of one historical moment being the revolution of 1979, but also to say how one political party, and in this case it's the Republic Islamic political party, who took over and who used not only the leftist tools, which were white covers, but image and photographic image specifically to create this dominant and official narrative of one official narrative of the revolution.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Here's the exhibition. So as you can see in the exhibition, with this really deft handling of all these different forms of media, newspaper clippings, advertisements, portraits of martyrs, stills from moving images. And it's this relationship across images that I think is so compelling. And as I was looking through the book, I was really interested in how the exhibition might be in conversation with another photo book that's reproduced within the book. And so I'm going to turn it over to Hannah to talk about this particular photo book and how the form of this photo book with its reproduction of different types of newspapers and making a narrative out between newspaper and text and photograph is then responded to within the exhibition itself.
So this is, I was very happy when you asked this question. It's a very smart question, and I think I showed this work before in 2019, already twice, and then also later, but no one noticed this point, which is a very interesting point that I think the kind of the form of the exhibition is coming out of these books as well. It's based on these books because this installation that you're seeing here, as you can see, it's the mix of images of the photos of the spread of these books that you see also in the exhibition that are on display. And then you can see also that they are, as Kelly said, put in dialogue in with other materials. And then we have this book. Oh, okay. This is the epic of the revolution of 1979. It's a very these photo books. They are. I should emphasize that they are not made by one institution. They are made by different photographers, graphic designers, and publishers with very different political views. And when we start in 1979, the variety is broad. We have all these different political views. And then when we get to 1983, because of the institutional censorship, we have one or two state-based publisher that is taking over and making books. So this one, which is in my opinion, because we can also discuss what's an artist book. For me, this is an artist book. It was made by two, I think, mostly graphic designers, Borossian and Khanali. And they did a very interesting thing. They made all these collages with press photography and also titles coming from the newspapers. So it's a very curated, but at the same time, they are not putting their own photographs in it, but they are using photographs that are still, they were in the press, and also some of them very iconic. For example, this photo of Prime Minister of the time, Bazargan, it's an iconic image. So they kind of also use these iconic images. Then at the end of the book, we have another booklet, a little booklet, which is a chronology of the time of all the photos that we are seeing. And these photos are coming from mostly events that happened during 1978 and 1979. The book starts with the image of Mossadegh, Mohammad Mossadegh, the Prime Minister of Shah, Mohammad Reza Shah, and it ends with the image of Ayatollah Khomeini. So we understand that they had a critical point of view, and but at the same time, they are keeping this objective position, because they are doing this book in 1979, and they are in the middle of this event, so they can't really have a very strong idea. In my case, there's the same form, there's the same approach of using photographs coming from archives, so we have all these photographs, but then I make this work 40 years after the revolution happened. So I have a living experience of this event, which is a revolution. And I also mixed these, we can say archive, but at the same time I should say that what I'm referring to archive is a kind of also very subjective collection, because it's my own collection and it's not an institutional archive, for example. And they are put in dialogue with photographs that I made from my native city, Tehran, screenshots, also some vernacular archive, and sometimes family photos. And by doing this, I have like this fragmented form in common with Khanali and Bogossian. For them, they were pointing at this overwhelming moment of historical moment that it cannot be understood when you are living it. In my case, it's pointing on this living experience of the post-revolutionary generation, and our also fragmented and incomplete understanding of the history.
So your photographs are pointing to your personal experience of looking back across this history then as you mix them in with historical photographs.
Yes, exactly. And I think also, there's something which I should say that is also important in my work is the blank spaces, because also I think in the historical representation, lack of image or not having the visibility is also as important as the image itself, because it's pointing on those moments that we don't have any photographs from them.
That's a really interesting distinction between the photo books, because the photo books are all individually making this claim for their evidentiary value. This is what happened, this is how we see it happen. And you really purposely have this statement about not being able to know.
It was a very important point for me, because, well, first of all, I should also say again that these, because my timeline of the work is 1953, which is the Mossadegh, when the Prime Minister of Shah, Mossadegh, has been fired by the government because we don't get to the history. But then it goes to 1988, and these dates are coming from the books. So when I'm putting these images, it's I'm not saying that I'm telling the complete story of the revolution, but I'm telling the stories based on the book collection. So yeah, so I think that's also important to say.
Yeah. What I really appreciate about this work is your dual ability to be both didactic, to teach us about what different moments of the revolution are trying to say through photographs, but also have a sense of criticality about the photograph's role in that very moment. And we're going to talk about this more, but thinking about, you know, the limitations of photographs as used in revolution, the limitations of photographs as propaganda, and so it's just really thought-provoking on all of those lines. I think now we will go to Days of Blood and Days of Fire. Sorry, I just moved the microphone away from...
Yeah, sure.
I was thinking it'd be a great opportunity to have Hannah walk us through. Oh, yes. We have 3 different examples of photo books that are reproduced within the book. And they're both really interesting ideas about what photographs should be used in service of different select moments of the revolution. And so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to have Hannah read these critically for us.
I think this is an interesting selection. The 3 books that Kelly selected, they are going to also show the nature of this photo book collection. First one is Blood Days of Fire, and I really like this book. And the good news is that the publisher Spectre Books, who published my book, they did the facsimile of this book. So if you like it, you can buy it now for like a very small amount, because the original one is very, very expensive. This book was made by the one and only independent publishing house of the time, Zamineh. This publishing house was made by Karim Emami. Karim Emami was a very important person in the Iranian cultural scene. First of all, he was the director of Franklin Publishing House, which played also a very important role in the role of publishing in Iran, American institution, so it's also funny. And then he was also a art critic, and also the film critic, and he had a very specific idea about documentary photography, and he expressed that very well at the beginning of this book. So this book is mostly photographs of Bahman Jalali. Maybe you know him because he's kind of now getting more known in the Western countries, and he was at the time, he was doing all these documentary form photos, and then also the second person, because it's not just him, and as Karim Emami explains that it wasn't enough just photos of Bahman Jalali to show all these different events happening all over the city. So there are the second person, which is very important, and sometimes they forgot to put her name. It's Rana Javadi, her wife of the time. And then there are other also photographers. So in this book, they really want to show these emotions. As you see, the photographs are taken, like photographers are among people. And there are these emotions of the revolution. And also on the cover, it says that this book is a testimony, and you can see it in the also photos. It wants to testify this moment of what happened during the revolution. So there are images, but also, the second thing is very important, are texts. They have the same importance as the images, and which is kind of like, for me, it's very interesting because Karim Emami, he truly believes in the veracity of documentary image, and he thinks that these images are going to deliver something about this historical moment. But at the same time, he put texts, because he kind of also understood that maybe we need more to understand, and there's some things that the image can't deliver. So we had these texts coming from some of them are different sources, some of them are slogans, some of them are like this, and then some of there are quotes coming from important people of the time, and some are just like newspaper titles. Then we have this book, Allah Akbar of Shahrukh Khatami. This is very different because Shahrukh Khatami at the time, he kind of decided to follow Ayatollah Khomeini. He was chosen by like different political parties as the leader of the revolution. So somehow he became the icon of the revolution, and at the time he was a fashion photographer, nothing to do with the documentary form. And he decides to go to Paris and follow this person coming back to Iran, and somehow this book was made 1979. In 1979 there were various political parties still active, and everyone wanted a part in this new upcoming government, and they were hoping for a democracy. So no one had this idea that for them it was Iranian Revolution and not Islamic Revolution. But somehow this guy had this idea that he is going to make this Islamic government. So he followed this guy, but then he made this book with all these chapters. He compared the move of Khomeini from Paris to Tehran as the move of Prophet from Mecca to Medina, which is very, also in the history of Islam, it's like a very courageous thing to do that. So as you see, the images are not emotional. They are very much curated. The form is very, there is this composition, very perfect composition. well, I mean, we have also these images, but they are also very beautiful images. I mean, I'm not very excited about the idea behind the book, but he is a great photographer. And this is the moment of seize of American embassy. And as you see, every image is very much put together. It's not it's very different from Days of Blood, Days of Fire. And then we have Buds in Smoke.
I'm going to interrupt really quick, because one thing we talked about was the different forms between the two, and it's just so striking to me how in this book it almost looks as if the images are staged. There really is this, I mean, there's a slow meditative quality to composing these images that even the one before that is in the midst of action almost makes you feel as though you are, like you've hit pause and you're in slow motion, compared to in the first, this attempt to really engulf the viewer with being surrounded by protest, surrounded by that energy. And so that visual distinction is really compelling.
Yes, and I think it's also because when you see like images of the revolution, it's always images of the masses. People always expect that. Even like when you see the exhibitions about the uprisings, the mostly images are focused. But then you understand that the revolution is not just that moment. There's all these different moments. So I think in that regard, these books are very interesting because they show all these different moments and different even actors of society. So also we can go to Buds in Storm.
Yeah, sorry.
That is no, but because this one is specific on one part of society, which are children. So this book is made by an institution, which is an institution, Kanun, which was like responsible for educating children, and one of the institutions after the revolution that still had some money to give to artists to produce work. And when you see like Iranian cinema after the revolution focused that much on the subject of children, it's one of the reasons, beside of the censorship that and the fact that talking about children is the less dangerous thing to do, is also because they supported artists for some time. So this book is a work of Kaveh Golestan and Hengam Golestan, and also a couple, and it's about children before the revolution and their condition. So it's kind of a social documentary photography, and it's showing how children are living in this not very good condition in the society. So before the revolution, and then we have during the revolution, and then we have the war, because the war, the Iran-Iraq war, which started in 1980, was also a very important chapter of the Iranian Revolution.
We've touched on this a little bit, but one thing that we've talked a lot in our conversations is finding these visual distinctions between photographs being mobilized for what starts as protest and revolution, then photographs mobilized as what we might think of as propaganda, and how there isn't necessarily a black and white distinction between the two. It's very fluid and mobile, and I think looking through these photo books, you can see that, these connections across the forms. And so I'd be curious to hear a little bit, and you addressed this in the exhibition as well, a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. As an artist, I'm practicing, my practice is also a documentary form, but also I want to maybe refer to the documentary style, because I think that's the one expression that Walker Evans said, and it was still very much, for me, it's something that described well what documentary photography means to me. So, I want to give the example, for example, of this book. That it's the name of the book is A Revolution of Light, and it's a 4-volume book which was made by the Islamic Guidance Office. So Islamic Guidance Office is that part of the Ministry of Culture that was added to the Ministry of Culture after the revolution and in 1983, and that also explains the date of the exhibition. So that was the one office who would control the values if every work or every artwork is adapted to the Islamic values that they wanted to have. So they published this 4-volume and very kind of, I can say, ambitious book, because they want to create the story of the revolution of 1979 through photography. You see all this on the cover. We have the 1979, we have the seize of the American embassy. We have the second, they had like this idea of the second revolution, meaning like the opposition is going to disappear, so that's the second revolution, and the third revolution. So it's a very ambitious and complete, in a sense, of covering all the events, but from the point of view of this Republic now Islamic Party, which became the government. And there is one very, I think we should now more than ever talk about this event, which was when the referendum happened and the Islamic government started to compose the institutional law. They put this obligatory hijab law for women, and the March 8th of 1979, women, they were against this law, and they did this very big protest. So, and what is interesting also is to say that they weren't always women who were like non-Muslim women, but they were also Muslim women, that they just didn't want to something like that to be obligatory as a state law. So that's also something to say. So this image is on that, this is published in that book, and they use this image, which is coming from maybe like maybe it's the beginning or it's the end of the protest. So there's a very few women here, and we have, and here it says, anti-revolutionary is making trouble or something like that. So first, they're calling these women who were active members of the revolution anti-revolutionary. And then they're showing them in this position that there are not a lot of women. So we think that there are like some few like troublemaking people there, and they didn't want the law. And then we have this same event, and this is one magazine, Tehran Musawwar, which was kind of, we can say, independent, and also from the political point of view, they didn't have a very strong, they didn't want to put a strong political agenda in their publishings. And they showed images of this event where you can see this is a very large and long street, and there are like thousands and thousands of women. And here, I really love this because it says freedom of women, freedom of society. And now we have life freedom, woman life freedom movement. And one of my friends, when she visited the exhibition with me, she's a historian, she said, what is it? Because it's freedom, woman, and she was like, is this from now or is this from the past? So that was also interesting how the history is now, it's a four-silker, and now we are asking this question again, as at the time we kind of missed this moment. So in the exhibition we see like these two forms. So what's the truth, I mean, of this protest finally? Is it this or this? And also there is some texts that would kind of clarify the position of very political personalities of the time about this. So there are all these information, various information to give you some idea of what happened, also to reflect on this event and on the representation of this event.
In our conversation leading up to this, you highlighted this quote here, that I do not believe these subsidiary issues should be raised these days, could really claim that Iranian men had rights and now raise women's issues. And again, this recurrence, how women now are reflecting on this and thinking like women's rights were always equally as important, and to ignore it just means that it's going to bubble up again like we're seeing now. I thought that was really powerful.
Yes, exactly. When I showed the work on 2019, many people forgot, or like the new generation, they didn't know that this protest happened. And now everyone is referring to this event because it was a very critical moment in the history of the revolution, and kind of we skipped that, and now we are coming back and asking how that happened.
Going back to the Revolution of Light, one thing I was thinking about looking at these images and this point you're making with how the supposed documentary photograph can be framed differently to show very different things, either a supposedly sparse crowd or a very, very active, super packed street. I wonder if you would consider documentary photographs as utilized by the state as this moment of like the death of the documentary image. You know, when you have the state claiming they're making a document, but actually they're just manipulating it in the same way that, you know, you do anything. Like, is that the moment when people lose trust in what the photograph can actually?
Yeah, it does that because when I was studying photography at University of Tehran, I had two of like Bahman Jalali and Yahya Derampur. There are people that you can see their books here. They were working with documentary photography before and also in early the beginning of the revolution. And then Yahya Derampur completely changed his kind of photography, and also Bahman Jalali, he was going also through changes, because I think there was this skepticism towards documentary form, because they saw how the images that were done by like independent photographers were used in favor of one propaganda message.
I was so shocked to hear that even having Bahman Jalali as your teacher, that he never introduced the very books he produced during the moment of the revolution.
No, I discovered these books in 2016. I mean, I never saw these books. He has 3 books in the exhibition, very 3 important and interesting books, and he never showed us even one of them. And never, I mean, unfortunately at the time he wasn't alive, but I really wanted to ask him why, what was the reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think then if we can go to the next slide. Oh yes. We've been speaking a lot about different enduring aesthetics of the revolution, and you know, if we could think about various through lines that come through these photo books, and portraits of martyrs is something that is very important to both the photographic aesthetics of this moment, but connecting to now also. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to hear more about this genre.
We have in several books this notion of martyrdom and what's the image of martyr. This book is very interesting because the name of the book is Tulip of Revolution, and it's a memory of all the martyrs, and here the definition of martyr by authors that I don't know who they are, which is also this book for me is a very big mystery. Is very large. So it's just people who fought against the monarchy, and they were killed during this fight. So it can be a leftist, it can be an Islamist. So they have martyr can be anyone, but just they are the main idea is the fight for democracy, something like that. So we have all these images. And then this book is published in 1984. It's not in the exhibition among the books because I wanted to be very precise about the dates. So this is here. Now the Islamic Republic is the official, we can say, narrator of the revolution, and they want to define the martyr again. So here we have these graves of the people who fought during Iran-Iraq war. So they are considered as heroes and martyrs because they kind of lost their lives for Islam. And these are people, I think, from like political parties. Maybe here I can also say that maybe they are like from Mujahideen political party. And we have the same aesthetics of this identity photo. And here, this is the hero, and here it says terrorist. So one time you are a hero, and one time then you are a terrorist. And this idea of martyrdom is still very much strong among Iranian people. This is from Iranian protests of 2022, Women Life Movement, Freedom Movement, and these are still, people are using now the images of their beloved ones who protest in the streets and they were shot by the police. And now they are redefining and kind of subverting this concept of martyr. Who is a martyr? For them, now it's that people who were shot by the police. So it's the opposition of the government once again. So it's interesting how this idea is being changed, and like, as you said, who is the legitimate and who is the illegitimate like actor of one revolution.
Yeah, we can see this, we've been talking a lot about this transformation that happens across, we have to go from protester as illegitimate actor to then being legitimized in the moment of their protest, and then being rendered illegitimate again. And then in this, the families of those who have been killed then by the state trying to render the martyr legitimate in the eyes of an activist, what's now becoming a new activist world. And so that reactivation is really
yes, exactly. And also the use of photography, because this was the photography was very specifically the tool of Republic Islamic. They really very well understand that the Iranian society at the time, not today, but it was mostly rural, and like people would respond better to photography than text. That's something that, for example, leftists kind of ignored. And then now people are investing in the same tool. They're also, again, using photography for their favor.
Mm. You wanted to end on social media uses of these activist images today, and I think of a couple other examples here to speak to.
So these are from protests to 2022 protests, and they are mostly coming from Instagram, and they're coming from these platforms that are anonymous. So I don't know who is behind this platform. That's important to say. This specific platform, they claim that they are just collecting all the images that are sent by ordinary people, because as you know now, the act of being photojournalists or going in the street and photography and doing the photography is very dangerous. So people are becoming like citizen reporters. And you can see from the aesthetics of the image that it's done in a very urgent way, and like somebody is kind of running and taking this image of saying down with Khamenei, the leader of the supreme leader of the time. And so I think there are some influences from the documentary photographies of 1979, for example, also this importance of photographing writings on the wall. And then also this question of trust in the images. How do we trust? So for example, these images for me is very interesting. We have lots of these images. They are taken from the buildings because it's dangerous to take it from there. And all the time there is we can't really read the image. It's very hard to read. We can just see some things. But then there's the text that says something. And the text is say much more than the image. And sometimes they're pointing like you should see that in the image. But you don't see that. And at the same time, people are, I think I'm not the only one that can also put this on question that, okay, am I really seeing the thing happening? But at the same time, you want to be supportive of people movement. So you are going to share that anyway. So that's also the contradiction in this documentary form, that just pointing at the thing makes things happen, but it's not maybe really in the image. So
we were talking about how do you, looking at all these images, how do you develop a sense of criticality for them? And in this context, again, you want to be supportive, but then if you were to follow out your sense of criticality as a through line, that would make you ask these questions, like, is what this is claiming to portray actually what's happening? And it complicates the use of social media to further an activist's message.
Yeah, but I think also this use of photography in this manner was kind of, from the beginning, from 1979, I think it's one specific character of these Iranian photo books, that in most of them, the documentary, like beside the books, Days of Fire and the Days of Blood and Days of Fire, which is very, they are very concerned about all the details of documentary image, the author, the message, and everything. There are lots of books that we don't even have the name of photographers, or the images are very poorly printed. So that this use of just communicating a message through image was always there. And now I think people, with everything happened in the world, and we know that images can be also kind of modified, and we can build images. So there is no trust in the images. So now the image is just a tool to communicate some message. At the same time, there is always this, we are thinking that it might not be true. So as I can also maybe give this example of this image of Yalda Mayeri, which is a Iranian photographer, very important in the reformist era. She was very active. She did this image. This is in 2017 student protest. And it's a very, in terms of the image, it's a very strong and powerful image with this very anecdotic at the same time. And then recently Donald Trump used this image on his Twitter to criticize Iranian government, and she really got upset, and she said that she didn't want this image to be the tool of Donald Trump and that kind of politics. So that's also interesting how not only the image itself, but the use of image, how you can use it from this to that use.
Thank you. I think with that, we can open the floor to any questions or comments from the audience. I want to give everyone a chance to ask more questions of our brilliant host today.
Yes. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Kelly, for that. And yes, now, as Kelly just said, we will turn to the audience. Oh, one hand is up.
Hello, and thank you very much for being here. I'm really curious about the role that photo books played. It's not something we see in sort of North American culture, and it's certainly not something that would have had to do with the lack of literacy, because Iran has always been a very literate country. How did photo books come to play such an enormous role in defining what was going on?
That was also, when I started the project, I didn't know these photo books existed because nobody showed us when I was a student in University of Tehran, and also I never saw them in the people's houses. Some of them are published in like very important number of copies, like for example, Days of Blood, Days of Fire. It was published in 33,000 copies, which is even today it's a very huge number. But I never saw one example of this book in the house of one person. So at the time I was very much interested in the photo book as a medium, as an artist, and then I started to ask myself, and what happened in Iran? Did we really make like some Iranian photo books? And when I gathered the collection, the collection that you are seeing there is like 54 titles. So, and it's not everything. It's good, but there are some books missing. So I think my analysis as a person that is asking questions, why there was this production of photo books at the time and then it stopped. It's that when we had this tradition of making books as a resistant tool with white covers. So photo books were kind of a continuity of that tradition, but also it was kind of an independent, even we can say position, something beside the press. Because press is always, they have like some kind of political view. But photo books, and some of them are made by photographers themselves, so they're self-published, so we can have these other opinions, other points of views through photography. And then it stopped, I think, simply because, I mean, it didn't stop really, but we have lots of photo books made by propaganda institutions, but just because of the censorship, the independent photographers or publishing houses, that we can't see it anymore. So that's also why I chose this period, because I think this is the best representative of the time that we had this not only possibility, but also this enthusiasm to do these photo books. Because also something that I forgot to say, that the documentary photography before the revolution of 1979, it existed, but few photographers were interested. After the revolution, suddenly it became something that everyone started to do it because of the revolution and because of the war. So also that explains why the photo books were very specific of that time.
I think that's an interesting question. It's something that, you're stressing, like the ability for independent publishers, like small publishers and even photographers themselves, to publish their photo books is really important here. I see the same thing happening in Japan in the same period. People are publishing these small photo books, even bigger ones, but especially small ones, that they can hand out in the streets. So like there's something about being able to, and sometimes they're really great quality, but sometimes the photo image is not very great quality, but it doesn't matter because it's the content. And so the ability to self-publish, and you see this with the white covers collection as well, just the idea that you could make something in a relatively concise print run and then hand it out, get it on the streets, just activates people. So it's an interesting question.
What do you think Islamic dictatorship is thinking of your exhibition?
That's a very good question, because I really want to know, because I want to know if I go back, am I going to be in trouble or not? So I don't know, but from what I heard, because this is the first time that I'm showing this work. The work has been shown outside of Iran every time. First in Paris, then it went to Belgium, and then it came here. And I think the most of like Iranian public that it can get, it would be like in North America, because of the number of Iranian diaspora, the people in the Iranian diaspora. So I asked the gallery what was the reaction towards the work. And what was interesting is that it was a very mixed kind of ideas. So people had like really, some of them thought that I'm pro-monarchy, and some of them thought that I'm pro-Republic Islamic even. And that's kind of interesting for me, because I was like proud of myself. I thought that I did a work that is that open to interpretation. So I can also hope that the Republic Islamic would interpret it in favor of me.
Yeah, a question about the early work you were showing, the photo books, which were by two designers, and they had the very collaged kind of... Sorry, I'm just going to go... Yeah, no, it's great to see them again. Right, and which I think you also, that was the question that Kelly asked when you were comparing the form, the style of the books to the style of the exhibition itself. And I mean, and not to be too sort of Eurocentric, but I mean, it does seem to have that kind of situationist sort of use of and collage or punk aesthetic or something, which in the Western tradition was seen as being something that destabilized meaning, that drew attention to the materiality of whether it's the headline or the image and so on. What what relation do you think there is between form and content and politics in terms of what these designers were doing?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and I agree with you from what you interpreted from the form of the. I'm very curious. Unfortunately, there was one thing that was when I was doing this work, it was kind of made it very difficult for me to work in terms of research on these books. That there's no documentation on these books. And also, for example, this two-person, Boghosian and Khanali, I searched them, never found them. I don't know who they are. I think that they're just graphic designers. I saw some information. And these books, they are not in the National Library. We can't find them there. They're just in this institution, which is like Islamic propaganda institution, and it's directly related to the leader office. When you wanted to go to that library, it's an adventure how you get in. And they are not very good. I mean, when you get in, they're really generous of giving all the books to you, but they are not very good in documenting books. So I had really trouble because that would be, there are some interviews with some of the people that I could find, and they were still alive. But I think that's something that I hope through this work and through the first book of this collection, maybe there would be other researchers on this, and I have myself these questions. And I think if we can find like some people to answer this question, it would be fantastic. But I think that's still for me, it's an open question.
Hi. I remember walking through one of the books that I think was in your personal library, but I had a hard time finding. And it had an image of Karl Marx in France. And that made me curious as to how much the revolution and those who were left-leaning, how much they were being influenced by Western leftist theory and stuff like that, or if there was something that was more specific developing in Iran as a response to these things, and if there is kind of a culture of this, or citations of these references and theories in the images, or in the literature that is being developed. So that's what I'm thinking, and that's my question.
Yeah, that's from that's a translation of Capital of Marx in the section of white covers, and well, first of all, translation really plays a. I mean, I'm not a historian. I'm just going to answer you as an artist. Have that in mind, please.
You are a historian. You are a historian.
So so translation is very important in Iranian philosophy. I mean, even there was this moment in the Iranian history that they thought that translation is necessary, and it's even more important than the original, which I don't know why. But yeah, that's something that still is happening, and it's still Western philosophy goes to Iran through translation, and it's so. That book is a translation of the original work of Karl Marx, and there are also others writings of Lenin, or Ho Chi Minh, or Che Guevara. But I think your question is very interesting to answer that. I think they were also transformed. The ideas. So some of the books are the original the original text being translated, but most of them are the interpretation of those ideas from the point of view of political parties. So there is this part of how they are transformed and how they became local. So you pointed out in your question very well that there is no, we think Marxism or socialism or all feminism, all these very universal ideas, but at the same time we understand through these books that it's very local, because it's very much also adapted to the culture of one country. It's not at all what was in the Europe, and even in the Europe, I think each country has some kind of a different interpretation of the thing. So yeah, I think for me, unfortunately, I don't have the quality as a researcher to go through the text of this book. I mean, that's the work of really somebody else, like a sociology or like a historian person. And I think just if you look at the titles that we translated, because here the importance of showing these books was to show how they play a very important role in the revolution as an object. But then there are the titles, and when you read the titles, you would understand some things of the ideas that are behind the books.
I think you're also being quite humble because you have spoken with the publishers about why it was so important to publish these texts as well, and that is your historians and sociological, anthropological work that you've really done well.
My small part of, yeah, maybe.
Hannah, Kelly, thank you very much. This is really engaging. Hannah, I want to ask specifically about 4 of the images in the exhibition, the wallpapers that you have given particular privilege to. And one in particular seems to be that one, thank you, of the flowers that will register very differently for somebody who's experienced that image, which I understand was a screensaver on television at the time when the Islamic Republic started to censor certain content on TV. Anybody who's seen that or experienced it will see that image as a very distinct thing than somebody who doesn't understand that. And it seems pregnant or rich in the context of your discussion about how images shift between uses, between understandings, and how you have used that in this exhibition, particularly for those people who don't understand or don't have the history of that, who come in and see that as completely different image than somebody who has. And what I'm interested in is where you see the point of understanding, when somebody begins to understand what that image was used for and how they come to understand that, and that tension in the exhibition.
I mean, thank you, Reed, for this explanation, because I don't know if I must add something to what you asked, because it's also a very complete explanation of not only this image, but also it become once again asking ourselves how an image can be transformed and it has another meaning in different contexts. And I can just add that this image was not a wallpaper. At the beginning, when I did the exhibition at Lobel, it was part of this grid. And then at one point, I started to think about the form, and I wanted to add these wallpapers, because with the grid form, we have like each chapter resembles and they look alike, and there was the necessity of having this big image to differentiate the chapters. And I finally chose this image. And as you point out, because of this, it became interesting for me, because when we see it, it's just very joyous image. It's flowers and it's like blooms. So, but at the same time, it refers to something which is disturbing, which is this moment of interruption in the broadcast because of like lack of content or censorship. So, I really like the one image that is not showing much on the surface, but at the same time, it is very rich of meaning and also kind of what's happening, the social situation of the country.
You mentioned that each of these, the images that are on the panels are meant to be approached as screens, like individual screens that you are each telling a different part of the story. And then this is sort of like the master screen that is capable of blotting it all out, essentially. And so to that question about like at what point is meaning, I mean, I think part of your critique, as I'm understanding, is that there's many cases, especially in the case of the blank spaces, where we just can't know. There isn't a completion of understanding or knowing because of this back and forth between the slipperiness of truth and there is no truth and where that lies.
And also I think sometimes people ask me when they see this, when I explain the work, they say that, well, there is so much history behind, and we don't know about like the Iranian history this well, and how we are going to understand this work. And my answer is that you don't have to know, and I mean that I'm very well aware when I'm showing this work to the non-Iranian public that maybe many of them, they don't know these details of the Iranian history. And that's the beauty of it, because you can just, for me, the grid is made in a also very formal sense. So you can just follow the forms, and you can also create one story that is in relation with your own cultural and historical background, and it doesn't matter. And at the same time, this can be like an image of a flower, which is an image of a flower. I mean, that's the thing, though.
Any other questions? We'll take our last two.
Thank you very much for this event. Two questions. One of them is, will you tell us, please, what was the parameter of choosing the books, the white cover books? How did you choose them, and how did you find them? Like, is it like you run into them, or you order them, people bring it for you, bring them for you? And the other one, there was a slide of Khatami there. I was very curious why it was there, and you didn't talk about it, so just curious about these two.
So about the white covers, that's a good question, actually. Why these? So the books, when I was doing this project, it was very important for me to bring all the books from Iran, because the concept was what was left now after the revolution, after the censorship, and we know it's not a matter of black and white. It's not, everything wasn't disappeared. So we had all this. So the books that you are seeing there is the books that I found. I had a limited time, and I had also maybe limited resources. And those are like about 100 books that I found during the time that I had to go to I went to all these secondhand bookshops in Enghelab Street. So, but we know that white covers, there were like thousands and thousands of titles. What you see there, it's like just a tiny, tiny selection of what existed. Recently, I visited one archive in Toronto, the Mohammad Tawakkoli archive, and they had completely different white covers. And I thought we can also show all these white covers, and it can be also very interesting. But I mean, the idea was once again to talk about white covers and how they played a very important role during the revolution. And photo books as well, so they're coming all from Iran. None of them are from internet, or I hardly see them here on the market even, so it's not even possible. And then the image of Khatami was something that I think we wanted to discuss, but we didn't have time. We wanted to discuss the documentary photography after all this revolution and the censorship and during the reformist era. And this is the image of, this image I remember very well because I was a student during reformist era, and this is image of Sarbakhshian. Hassan Sarbakhshian was one photographer who were very active as a photojournalist in the reformist press. And he had this style of doing these very anecdotic photographs, and also this one is very humorous because you can see this insect, this prayer mantis, on the head of Khatami, and we call this thing Akhundak, and we call the clergy Akhund. So Akhundak means like the little clergy or something like that. So, and it was on the head, on the top of the turban of Khatami, and his bodyguard is like trying to take it off. And I remember, I mean, when we were discussing the censorship with Kelly and how the government uses these images for propaganda reasons, I thought of the work of Hassan Sarbakhshi on how this image kind of created without, I mean, you can't tell anything. So it was published. So it was kind of, the censorship couldn't stop this image. There was no reason. But at the same time, this act created so much discussion. I remember people like discussing this image in the taxi and like everywhere. So I think that was a very smart strategy by the documentary photographers of the time to kind of go around and do something else.
You can take one last question if anyone has any. No? Okay. Hannah and Kelly, thank you so much for this insightful conversation.
Thank you.
We still have their drinks. There's some dried fruits and other kind of snacks that you can get. And have a lovely evening. Thank you for coming.